So I decided to record these first two videos back to back. I'm going to be posting them uh, at a different time. So I don't even know why I'm telling you this. I just thought you should know how much I wanted to get these first two players out of the way. And that honestly, the second guy, he wasn't one of my least, well, it was pretty bad. It was very bad. But he wasn't like when I look back on the failure that was the 2023 season, and I do think the 2023 season was a failure. He won't be one of the first guys I think of. That Colton Wong obviously will be one of the first guys I think of, if not the first guy I think of. But this guy had a really bad season. Uh, Negative 0.9 WAR in just 17 appearances. Whew, that's awful. That is awful, folks. And you know it from the title. We're talking about Chris Flexen. Just as a real quick reminder, I'm going to be, after recapping every single Seattle Mariner game, I'm going to be recapping every single Seattle Mariner player. It's either 56 or 57. I can't remember. Who cares? It's going to be a lot. It'll definitely get us through some stuff, and I'll have some other videos and stuff too. I, once again, just like I did with Colton Wong, am trying to avoid the subject. Whew. 17 appearances, 42 innings of work, a 29-19 strikeout to walk ratio, and a 7.71 ERA. So let's go back to 2021. The Mariners, who were good in 2021. Don't think they knew they were going to be good in 2021, but they were a good team. Certainly by wins and losses anyway. They signed Chris Flexen after he was a disaster with the Mets, but had a couple of really nice seasons in the KBO. And they bring him in to be like a back-end starter type, compete for a spot in the rotation, wins it pretty easily. And, 2021 breakout season is an understatement. 3.61 ERA, 14 wins. I know wins and losses, but I'm going to bring it up because it helps my argument. 179 and 2/3 innings. He was awesome. He was awesome in 2021, and he was pretty good in 2022. He loses his rotation spot, and him losing his rotation spot had more to do with the fact that they weren't going to demote Marco Gonzalez from the rotation. And when Luis Castillo got there, he moves to the bullpen and did a solid job there. And the debate was in 2023, who's going to be the fifth starter? Who's going to be the fifth starter? I don't think it was ever really up for debate. I think Marco was locked in partially because of salary, partially because of a little bit better track record. Not a lot better track record, but a little bit better track record. And, Marco wins the fifth job. Flexen moves to the bullpen, but is almost immediately called upon to move out of that bullpen spot because of the Robbie Ray injury, who we'll be talking about early in this thing because he only threw a couple innings and they weren't very good. But he gets his chance in the rotation, and he was just awful. He was horrific. We knew he wasn't going to miss a lot of bats. Career high of 125 in that 2021 season. 343 career strikeouts and 487 2/3 innings. Good for 1989, not good for 2023. But the big thing was, it wasn't just that he couldn't miss bats. That was something that we're used to. He didn't throw consistent strikes. When you have a lack of a big fastball, which is an understatement for Chris Flexen, and you don't have like a dominant slider or a JB Moyer changeup, you have to have really good control and command. And he had neither. His walk rate of 8.2 was just slightly above average. And just slightly above average with Chris Flexen stuff is not going to get it done. Not by a long shot. I mean, I'm looking at his baseball savant page here. Expected ARA of 6.20 was in the bottom third percentile. Expected batting average of 296 was in the bottom third percentile. Strikeout percentage of 15.9 was in the bottom 7 percentile. The only thing that is above 50% is walk rate, and that's not good enough. That is not nearly good enough. And look, in hindsight, you can look back on it, and I was told by some folks that the Mariners did have some folks interested in Chris Flexen, and justifiably so, based on what he had done for all of 2021 and the majority of 2022. It made sense. But I get why you didn't make that trade. It was very obvious, is probably too strong of a term here, but it was very likely that the Mariners were going to have some starting pitching injuries after not having very many, if any, in 2022. That's how this works. You have to be prepared. So I understood hanging on to that depth. But to say he wasn't up to the task when given the chance, oh. And I got to tell you, so the Mariners do the right thing, designate Flexen for assignment, get him off the roster. Now, I work in a field that writes about baseball. Now, I mean, I said that horribly. I also work in a field where I talk about baseball, but apparently I don't do all that well. My job is to like write signings and stuff like that. When I saw Chris Flexen wearing a Colorado Rockies uniform, it was one of the most shocking things I've seen in my life. That's hyperbolic, but I was stunned. When the heck did this happen? And, I will say this, like, there's part of me as a Mariner fan who embraces isn't maybe the right word, but can kind of have fun with the whole feeling about a player going to a new team and doing well for that new team can be kind of I don't know, cathartic almost. That did not happen for Chris Flexen. A 6.27 ERA and a 45-19 strikeout to walk ratio in 12 starts for the Colorado Rockies. I mean, just fell apart. The start that I think we'll all remember the most is that start against the Cubs, where the Mariners get off to that massive lead in the second inning, I want to say. Yeah. 8-1, 9-1, whatever. And it just vanishes like that. Because Chris Flexen's stuff in command that day was just wretched, as it was for most of the season. He wasn't good in the bullpen. He wasn't good in the rotation. And I don't blame the Mariners for thinking that Chris Flexen was going to be a fine fifth starter if and when needed. He's the opposite. He put you in a major hole every time he took the mound. And, now I'm curious where Chris Flexen goes from here. Because he's not an old guy. I believe he's 29. I'll look that up real quick. Yep. Turns 30 on July 1st. Happy early birthday, Chris. I don't know. Somebody's going to give him a shot. Probably on a minor league deal with a bunch of incentives. Can't see him getting a guaranteed deal. Not after that season. Kind of crazy, though, considering how good he was in 2021 and 2022. This is a player that gave the Mariners 4.5 wins over those seasons. The only reason it's that low is because he got moved out of the rotation in 2022 for reasons that weren't really his fault. Heck, by RA9, which is an advanced stat that a few different places use, runs per 9 innings for an average pitcher is what it basically comes down to. He was better in 2022 than he was in 2021. And now I don't think he gets a shot. I don't think he gets a legitimate shot. Like, he'll get the chance to be a organizational depth type of guy. But he's going to have to pitch his you-know-what off in spring training just to make a roster. That's crazy. That's crazy. And again, I didn't think Chris Flexen was an ace. No one did. The Mariners didn't. But he looked like a solid back end starter with some value as a guy who can pitch multiple innings out of the bullpen. And he went from that to being one of the worst pitchers in baseball. And that just goes to show you that's why, you know, you can't invest too much in pitchers like Chris Flexen. And by invest too much, I don't mean money. John Stanton's just fine. The Mariner ownership group is going to be okay that Chris Flexen stunk. And will be okay if they pay somebody who isn't good. They're going to be fine. But I mean, by invest, I mean investing is in assuming that this player is going to be a key cog for your team. Because any loss in command with a pitcher like that, and their value drops precipitously. Bummer. Because I like Chris Flexen. I think he's a good dude. Great story. Was an interesting prospect for the Mets who just stunk to high heaven for them. You ask any Met fan about the Chris Flexen experience over his 3 seasons. Yep. Very little action. All of 11 starts and 27 appearances, but did not go well. And, goes to Korea, refines his form, and ends up being sold. I forgot about that. I 100% forgot about that. Ends up being sold to the New York Mets with Trevor Gott, who we'll talk about not too long from now. Not too long from now as well. Zach Muckenham. What a cheap organization. Chris Flexen gets an F. I don't know how you give him anything but an F. If Colton Wong is F minus, Colton Wong is just or Chris Flexen is just a big old stinky F. Agree? Disagree? I don't know how much you can disagree. But, if you want to be a contrarian in the comments, I'll still hit the heart button. Please hit like and subscribe. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm actually not sure who it is. I imagine it's going to be someone like Cooper Hummel or Tommy LaStella or something like that. Could be Pollock. Haven't looked. Thanks for watching. Love you.